good afternoon to the audience. And you must love crime. After the talk last month, the hangman, and tonight, it's a pretty full house. And I thank you for coming in this miserable sort of weather. Now, this is the story, my story, of my connection to Jaden Haiti, who was the building manager at Sugar Dock and the KSS. Now, I'm going to explain to you what the KSS is. It starts off with 4 buildings sitting on a car park. And the car park is called KSS BMC. The 4 buildings are Knox-on-Bowman, Stonecutters, and they were built in this order too, Sugar Dock and Silk. Now, this presentation is in 3 parts. I'm going to try and tell my story of Jaden, and then I'm going to tell the story of how they found him, and then the aftermath of what the clean-up of all the business. Now, the building manager, Jason, or any building manager, probably most of you live in a high-rise. If not, the building manager is the person that we go to have things fixed in the building. And in this case, Jaden and I, as the housekeeper, and that's, by the way, an elected position, and part of those duties are to go around and inspect the building with the cleaning manager to make sure the building is clean and make sure all those nasty little things that might happen are fixed. So that's the building manager and myself. There is 2 more people that I will mention personally. By the way, is John Keith here?
No, he couldn't come.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was going to.
Thank you. Paul, you'll hear about Fred and Mary. Now, Fred and Mary are not their real names, and I've just given them those to respect their privacy. Okay. This is Jaden's calling card. He worked for a mob called Brookfield, which are pretty famous people around from Canada, but this was an offshoot, BGIS, and I'm not quite sure what those letters stand for. But when Jaden came to me a long time after I was first elected to the housekeeper duties, and probably the story really starts in 2015, and I'm going to give you one of my poor drawings. Oh, sorry, the Jaden that you saw in the first slide with his fingers up like that in McDonald's car park is not the Jaden I knew. This is more the Jaden I knew, this story, this one here. And he wasn't a bad character, so I thought. Now, maybe I'm not a very good judge of character, I don't know. But I thought Jaden was married with 6 children. He lived at Auburn. He drove a black Holden ute, and I've just learnt tonight that it had the number plates Venom. Now, this was a black ute with that had a V8 motor in it. It was one of those really hot sort of things. And one of during Jaden's time, and then I'm going back to 2015 to explain the tanks. And Jaden had a mother at Tuangabi, and as I said, I got quite close to Jaden in the 18 months, and at one stage, the people in Silk said, or complained to the security people, which were in this building just here, that he was taking up one of their parking spots. Now, he was entitled to one parking spot in Sugardock. Remember I said it was 4 buildings on the top of the car park? Well, anyway, they stopped him for about a month, and during that month, I gave him my second parking spot, or our second parking spot. So I got quite close to this guy, or I thought I did. And now I'm going to go. This occurrence happened on the B6 level, which is the lowest level of the car parking, and this is the diagram of that to try and explain it to you. Now, if I had my own, sorry ma'am, if I had my own computer, I had a laser, laser pointer to show you this, but I'm going to try and do it with this. All right, now there are, and I've got these marked wrong by the way, that's the irrigation, and the bottom one is the copper. That these 2 tanks, this is in 2015, I'm probably disappearing. These tanks were emptied, and the 2 building managers before Jane, I always tried to get them to restore them to what Lend-Lease had built, and I never had very much luck with doing that. And as you can see here, do you see that arrow?
Yep.
All right, well these tanks were filled from the roof of Sugardock via a 300mm pipe going down through the building. And this is the pipe in the plenum, and I must explain a plenum to you. Everybody understand what a plenum is? Okay. Well, a plenum is the in this case, is the cut of the sandstone and where the building starts. And usually this is only about 800mm wide. It's wide enough to walk in, but not much wider. And this is the sandstone cut. But this is important because this is part of the story. So that's the sandstone cut. So we're right down the bottom of Sugardock building, and this is another layer here, which will be explained later on. As I said, I never had much luck with getting the building managers, and it was a story of something to do with Tasman tanks, who wouldn't warrant these tanks. They normally do for 10 years, but apparently we hadn't maintained them up to their standard, which means somebody comes in every 12 months and empties them and cleans the sludge and all that sort of stuff out of them. So that was a problem with Tasman tanks. Now, this is the piping in the plenum coming down from the roof, and this piping over here is the overflow, which goes into a sump, and I'm not going to explain the sump here, but you must note doorway from the lift lobby, but the problem with that door is it's under CCTV. Another one over here goes into the pump room, and those pumps are the pumps that take these waters up to the ground floor. and there's an exit out there. And a little bit later, I'll show you what Jaden did. As I said, even when Jaden came, naturally, he wasn't going to help me get these tanks back into operation. And if anybody was here for the man from Lend-Lease, one of the things that he talked about was the environmental things that Lend-Lease did, and this is one of them. This is to save mains water. Now these tanks were empty, but there's a backup of the mains water. So everything worked all right. The pool got topped up, the gardener turned on the tap, and the water came out of the tap. So there was no reason really why these tanks probably needed to be refilled, but it was for environmental. So I started in 2015. 2 previous building managers didn't get me there, and neither did Jaden. Of course, Jaden had other thoughts on what he was going to do with this. One of the times on the inspections, I tried to, and I didn't have a key for that door. We'd come down in the lift, and that door, I wanted to go in, and Jaden said, "No problem, I was in there yesterday." Of course he was in there yesterday because he was living in there. But I didn't know it at the time. And this was a fault probably of myself. So that was the inspections. Another meeting with Jaden while he was living in the tank. And I'll explain all these other little bits and pieces in a minute. I found there was a fire alarm around about 11 o'clock at night in Sugardock, and I go down to the fire room in Tambua Street, and who's there? Jaden. And I said to Jaden, I said, "My goodness, mate, you must have got here pretty quick from Auburn." And he said, no, I was working back doing paperwork. And that probably was a fair enough answer. I saw him again in the street at about 8:30 at night, which is right on my bedtime. And the same thing, he was working back that night. And then Jaden's vehicle was missing, the black ute that I talked about earlier. And I said to him at the next inspections, I said, "Where's your ute, mate?" And he said, he said I had to go to the garage. He said, "I blew the gearbox up and it's going to cost $4,500 to get it out of hock." And of course, he didn't need a vehicle. He was living here. So he'd taken his vehicle somewhere, I don't know where, probably to his mother's place in Tuangobi. So, the first that I knew of any problem was about March 2019. So we've gone a fair few years trying to get these tanks going, but anyway, March 2019, there were reports of people losing their possessions from their cages in Sugardock and other buildings in Jackson's Landing, and other buildings in Pyrmont, Ultimo and Glebe even. And I'm not here tonight to talk particularly about those poor people that had their goods stolen, but I do, I really feel for you, because there was a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff stolen. Okay, then, that's the cages. And then there was a report in the newspaper of this guy living in the basement of Sugardock. and that's the first time I heard of that. The story was, in the newspapers, was wrong because it got the wrong building, but apart from that, it was pretty close. And then my strata committee, Sugar Dock Strata Committee, had a meeting, and we decided that we weren't going to change what the newspapers had said, or tell the newspapers that they had the wrong building. We were going to just let it slowly slide away. And part of the stolen goods were my friend Fred and Mary, and he had a very extensive wine collection in his cage, and he told me, this was in March of 2019, he told me, he said, whoever's pinching my grog has got a pretty good taste. And not only did he have a good taste for the Fred's wine, but he had a good taste for Mary's clothing. And apparently, from what I've been told, there was $6,000 worth of clothes stolen. Okay. As I said, we had a strata meeting, strata committee meeting, and decided to sort of let it all slip by, hopefully, but it didn't. So, now that's my part of the story. Now this is the police story, which is also very interesting, and it was given by the sergeant that was on the case at Chatswood Police Station about the march in the, when I told you about, we heard that stuff was being stolen. The police were on the job at for a guy who lived in Lane Cove, who was thought to be drug dealing and gun running. And eventually the police caught up with this bloke, and he had a phone with Jaden's phone number in it. And the police came here one Friday to the management office down here and took away Jaden's phone and his computer. In his computer, there were pictures of the plenum that I told you about, and the security people over here in this building, they thought they knew exactly where it was. And it was just pictures of sandstone walls, really. Anyway, in his picture library was also the pictures of the stolen goods that were going to eBay and Gumtree. And there was an awful lot recovered out of Sugar Dock, I can tell you, but he did get rid of some of it, and it was obviously for drugs for this guy. Anyway, they came, and because they worked out that Jaden's phone wasn't moving, it was here, and the police came one night, and now this is all the police side of the story. I can't vouch for any of this. I don't know. They had a lot of people here to try and catch up with Jaden, but no, I haven't shown you yet. But Jaden had his own CCTV, and he had his own plug-in to the security CCTV in here. He was hooked in so that he knew everything was going on, and I'll show you that in a minute. So they came 2 nights in a row, and on the second occasion, Jaden saw them, but his dryer was going, and the police could hear the dryer in the plenum and came and found him. But at that stage, Jaden had gone. He'd gone out of one of his three. Wait till I move on a bit. That's the way it was, and this is the way it is after Jaden's finished with it. And Jaden had probably nicked out that door, up the fire stairs, and then into Silk's fire stair, which came out on the bottom of Bowman Street here. And he went, they saw him going around towards the fish market and then lost him. So, now, this is what Jaden had done. Remember, there was pipes coming down here to this. He cut those pipes away, that pipe away. And this one here, this one was about chest height. So it was in his way, so he got rid of that. And that all the way around there. And he left his girlfriend. He had a 19-year-old girl shacked up with him there who was on drugs. And that was the poor dear. And what I'm going to show you in a minute is a movie made by the police. And this is where the bits and pieces were. He had a shower in there. He had a kitchenette in there, a toilet up here, and a washer dryer here, which was on when the police tried to catch him. Now, to all of you, if you Google Jaden Haiti and look at the report in the newspaper by the New Zealand Herald, it's the best. It's the best report and the best movie too. But unfortunately, in my ignorance today, I couldn't get it up at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So you're going to have to put up with this one. So this is the police video. Now, Mary, I might be in a bit of trouble here getting this going. And I was going to stop it, but just before I do go on, there we go. And I might show it again. It's a bit on the dark side. This is where he built a door into the tanks. And I don't know whether you saw those white marks. They were the television screens for his CCTV. And all these bolts here were all glued back. That was how he made a door. And the heads were glued back in so that if you looked at it, you wouldn't see anything different. This is his washing machine and dryer, all painted in dark colour, which you'll see a bit later on. This is where he's his toilet. And have a look at this magnificent, this bloke was brilliant. Have a look at this magnificent bit of work here.
Painted the sandstone.
He had steps to go up to it. Because he's working in very, very, very confined spaces. And this is what the police were after. This is, see there's where he's taken the pipes out. This is his electrics, which he did pretty well. That's some of his water down there. This is where he stored stuff, but this is only a very small percentage of it, I can tell you. This is his kitchenette. And then around the other side of the column, that column there, was his bathroom. All plumbed, all tiled. See all the tiling that he's done? Painted nicely. It wasn't too bad. I reckon he must have been an architect, a builder, plumber, electrician, all those sorts of things. And it's a pity he didn't use his skills to better use. Now, Jaden ended up getting 6 years with a non-parole period of 3 years. Do you want to see that again? Do you want to see that picture again? You can get a better version of it, as I said, on the internet by Googling Jaden Hating and using the New Zealand Herald. As I said, I tried to get it up today, but couldn't. What am I trying to do now? I'll probably go back to that one. One of the interesting parts of Jaden being, he was jailed when they found him 3 weeks later down in a hotel in Sutherland at somebody's wake and lumbered him and put him in jail. He didn't get bail, and he represented himself for a while in court, and that didn't work too good, so he hired some lawyers. That didn't work too good, so he fired them, and he sends a note to my friend Fred to help him, see if he would help him in his court case. And of course Fred had all this stuff stolen, so he wasn't going to help him. So anyway, we think now, John Keith, who's the boss in next door in the security, I thought he was going to be here tonight and he might have been able to add some more to the story, but we think, well, I think, and so does Fred, that he's probably got out of jail after his 3 years, which probably would have been about May this year. That's why I'm doing this now, not in case he appears at the front door. I thought, honestly, coming here, crossing over 10 Ewer Street and Distillery Refinery Drive, there was a black hole new coming out of there, and I thought he's here to get me. But I got on all right with him, so I don't think he didn't steal from me, by the way. The aftermath of all of this, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but BGIS, the Brookfield people, changed their name to Sky pretty quickly after this event. I don't know whether they thought they were going to get more work or not, but they were finished their contract, and that was the end of them. It's now management, as you probably know. Anyway, it took 12 months to get the whole clean-up of Jaden's activities, and then another 6 months to fill the tanks because it was drought time. Excuse me. And I understand that the restoration cost was in excess of $200,000 because one of the tanks, this one, he'd opened it up and painted the inside of it for marijuana growing.
Oh my goodness.
And the tank couldn't be put back to the way it was. So as far as the Sugar Dog people are concerned, that's a brand new stainless steel tank, which probably cost a lot of money. But to clean up all his mess, and I can show you a few pictures now of that's the police again.
So that's the tank.
Yeah, that's the tank, and that's the bolts that I was talking about. So it's a bolted construction, and he put all those heads back so that you wouldn't know. If I'd have got in there that day when he said, doesn't matter, I was in there yesterday, if I'd have got in there that night, I wouldn't have probably known any different anyway, because he was very careful not to leave stuff around. Now, this is the new tank, the stainless steel one, and as I said, I got the names mixed up, but you can see it is Tasman tanks, which have now warranted both tanks. So we've got what we wanted. There, looking, this is the passageway from the door coming from the lift well, looking along one tank, the new tank, and the old tank, the one that he was living in. They were able to restore that. And the associated piping going into that pump room. Remember I said that's the door of the pump room? And then this is all the pipe work, and it's still there, by the way. These pictures were just taken just recently. See all the pipe work there? That's the stuff that he cut out of the plenum. All of this. And that's still sitting there. It's not hurting anybody. And this picture is from the tank room door that he used to get to his toilet and all his other bits and pieces. And that, you can see, this is all this black, and that's where the washing machine and dryer were, so that if you looked from this door, you really didn't see much. See, all this pipe work, all that was taken away. That's all part of the building now. And that's where his toilet was, which you saw in the earlier slide. And he'd come out of this door from his tanks, around the plenum, around that corner, and around to his kitchen and bathroom. Now, one of the things that the people in KSS, which is Knox-on-Bowman, Stonecutters, Sugarloaf and Silk, now have is really upgraded security, because about 3 days after the police were involved, the security people upgraded things like, for those that don't live here, we have a fob to get into the lifts and drive the lifts and things. We have an air key to get into the car park. Well, Jaden, when he was there, prior to this, he had control of all of these things, and he could program them himself. Now the security people have stopped all that, and the one thing that's happened, I can just about promise you that it couldn't happen again in the KSS. Just recently, the CCTV has been upgraded, and it can pick out people's faces from a long way away. So if Dave did come back, and he wouldn't get in because the keys have all been changed, he'd be caught on CCTV. So I think that's about all. There were certain triggers that I missed, and I don't know whether you want to hold me responsible for them, but one of them was not inspecting the tank room when Jaden said, don't worry about it, I was in there yesterday. I don't know whether that's a fair thing. the excuse for the vehicle and the excuse when I met him in the street. You know, probably in hindsight, I'd probably be a bit more careful. But anyway, for all those people that know their building manager, might be worthwhile just keeping an eye on it. No, they're all good. I can tell you, they're all good people. And I'd like to thank the following people. My wife for putting up with me, trying to put this thing together, and who's supplying and presenting the nibbles that you're going to be getting into in a minute. Donald here, who's the convener of Piedmont History, Sunday Talks, and keeping the cellar stocked with wine that you're going to be getting into soon. Mary over here, my good friend Mary, for the electronics and the recording and presentations, and helping Donald with the wines, of course. The AFS security people, I think they performed pretty well in this particular case. I've heard people criticising them, but I don't think they had any more insight into it than probably what I had at most. And most importantly, you, the audience, thank you. And don't forget there's a donations jar at the where you pick up the wine. And I'm quite happy to take any questions as long as they don't refer to specific people, because I really can't help you with, you know, like Fred and Mary are all right. But, all right, Donald, looks like we've got a few down there. Sorry if that was a bit disjointed and long-winded.
Right, yeah. So there couldn't possibly be any questions like that.
It's not quite a question, but I thought people might be interested in this. This is what Jaden Hattie was using to get into your cages. If you had bumped into him doing it and he had this, you were in grave danger, I suspect. And don't blame yourself. BGIS were the people who absolutely missed everything, including him hacking into the system in November and calling himself Dean Martin. They laughed it off. So BGIS, not you, were the chief villains in all of this. And when I discovered Distillery Hill cages were being broken into, I went into the BGIS offices and they said, that's not our job, it's got nothing to do with us. So whether they knew stuff themselves, I don't know. But we put notices in lifts, which we did on our computer, and people went down to their cages on Distillery Hill, and that's when the police got involved in Distillery Hill. There's BGIS, BGIS, and BGIS. Anyway, this is what he used.
Thank you for that. He also used a ratchet spanner to undo the bolt on the hinge side of the gate and twist it around so that the pin that you put your lock on came out. That was another way he was getting in and out. He was a cunning little bugger, I can tell you.
Which raises the question why he didn't break out of prison. Other questions? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, that was really interesting. But I just am wondering if anyone knows anything of his background, because, you know, whatever else you might say about him, he's obviously fairly intelligent, multi-skilled and enterprising.
Well, I can answer a little bit of that. His background in New Zealand, he had a drug against him, and that might have been the reason why he came to Australia. I don't know. But he had no record here in Australia until he started the stealing. So, I don't know whether that answers your question. There's a little bit, I think, about that in the New Zealand Herald, in that Jaden Hattie article I told you about. So maybe we'll have a little look there. There might be a bit more. But he was educated in New Zealand. So
Very well educated.
Paul, question about, I guess, the environment we're in another building. If the police were needing to come in to find this fellow, they go to the building manager. So he was the building manager. But as best I can understand what you said, the security people are different from the building management. Therefore, the police would have gone to the security people to get in. Is that right?
correct. And until, to my knowledge, until the two raids, which were assisted by our security people, but the security people didn't know anything about Jaden either, apart from him being, like in those days, he had a full set of keys to go everywhere, into every building. And I was recently told that there was another New Zealand guy who, and I'm not mentioning any names, who about a week after this Jaden incident with the police, he left and went back to New Zealand. And that was one of these buildings down here. So there might have been more than Jaden doing the stealing. We don't know.
Can I ask a question?
Anecdotally, my granddaughter locked the bathroom door in our unit, and I rang up security, and a fellow came down to try to get it open, and then John from security came down, and they couldn't get in, and he says, "Where's Jaden when you need him?"
Donald, Marianne.
Another question about what you just described, but I believe this week there was a drug bust in Bowman Street, and I wondered if you knew which end of Bowman Street or what it entailed.
Well, I don't, but that doesn't mean to say it didn't happen.
Apparently it's on the news.
At the same time?
No, this week.
Recently.
This week.
Oh, well, okay. I do know a little bit. That there were drugs coming out of Shudok. There were drugs coming out of Silk reasonably recently. 14D in Sugardock was raided. The police came one early morning and broke the door down, and that cost a little $10,000 job to restore the door. So there is activity around here. So just be careful, won't you, when you're walking by yourselves.
Yes, city. Thanks for that. City.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was fascinating. I'm just curious about the second tank. You said he had painted the inside. Was he actually growing marijuana in there?
It wasn't, but it was being prepared for it, Mary. He had all the lights and everything in there. He had all the watering system in there. But you know, this was an offshoot. This was an extra to the stealing. So, and probably saving himself an awful lot of money in rent, I would suggest too, using our electricity and our water. No, that was Brookfield's.
Oh, I thought so.
That's, yes. No, they didn't charge us anything for any of that. Remember I talked about the pump room? That had to be, well, let's see if I can get that back up for you. This, in here, because all the bumps and everything in there hadn't worked for 5 years, a lot of that had to be replaced, and Sugar Doc picked that up, which was about 9 grand's worth. Not a huge amount of money for everybody, but it was money. But the tank replacement, cleaning up all of this tile and everything around the plenum, getting rid of the toilet, the washer and dryer, that was all picked up by Brookfields or BGIS, Sky, by the time they finished.
What was he actually convicted for? What were the charges? Were there
Stealing.
no drug charges?
No. No.
So your reference to drugs is what? The guy that in Lane Cove and so on?
Yes, well
Just
that's the police story, who told it in here, in this room, about a week later. See, it was a crime scene. We couldn't even go near it. With the strata committee of Sugar Doc were given about, it was about 2 weeks later, once it was changed from a crime scene, they took us through and showed us what was going on.
But anyway, he was only convicted, he was convicted on theft charges.
Well, he was, yes, he went to jail for 6 years with a non-parole period of 3 years. We know that for a fact. By the way, while the microphone's going around, hello, I hope you don't mind me sitting down. It's a bit complicated to drive all these things with standing up. So, sorry about that. I hope I haven't missed too much.
That's okay. Just a couple of points to add a bit more colour to the story. So Elsa and I were beneficiaries of Hayden's craft and lost a fair bit from our cage. But just in the process, just the intimacy of the relationship we had with Jaden as well, I guess, because he was the manager, is that when it was happening, I remember we were away and friends of ours were staying at our place and they told us about it. So I emailed him and said, Jaden, something's happening. We're having problems. You know, people are taking stuff from our cage. And I got back an email really quickly, just like that, said, don't worry, Peter, everything is under control. So, I felt quite relieved by that. As part of the process, we had a lot to do with chat with police. And, just stories that you picked up. The girlfriend actually was the daughter of the woman that he was actually dating initially. And we started to become worried about grandma because he was making his way through the family. The other aspect, in all of this was we ended up going to Chatswood and they had a smorgasbord of material that we could choose from. And this was, the sadness of it all was, because we lost some jewellery, the sadness of it all was that the only thing that was left in Chatswood was this pencil case that I made in Form 6. The kind where you have to get all the corners right. Mine was full of putty, and I remember my teacher saying, this will not last. This will not last. And there it was, the remnant. Not even good enough for Hayden. I guess the final piece around this was that was Hayden and Jaden and the work that he did. We lost a lot of stuff, but the one thing that we did regain were a couple of things, and it was really incredible. One of those things was a ring that my wife had, that she had inherited and had been remodeled. And it was just by sheer accident that her sister in Melbourne was just looking through eBay and some of those assorted sites and spotted that ring in Burwood. So we were able to make our way to Burwood, which is, the land of pawn shops. We found it, no one asked any question, we said, that's our ring, and that was the end of it, and we got our ring back. And that was kind of like months afterwards. The other thing that we recovered was my wedding band, because it was inscribed. There's a story to that, isn't there?
Oh yeah. Sorry
but it was really quite traumatic for a lot of people. So and I think the trauma is still there in bits and pieces as I kind of bump and occasionally talk to people.
Thank you, Gunnar, and that's the reason why I didn't concentrate on the stolen goods. Because there might be a number of people here that didn't get their goods back, which I'm very sorry about.
So the point has come where if we break up now and have a drink and a sandwich or whatever Carol has made, we can talk informally among ourselves and with Paul until the cows come home. But first I need to thank Paul for the most illuminating story. And particularly thank the audience for the penetration of the questions and responses that you have given, which enriched the whole occasion. Thank you for that as well.